Welcome to No Broken Legs. We are back, baby. I am Evan Belfiore. Joining me in-house, Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you this Sunday evening?
I'm great, brother. How about yourself?
It's great to have football back.
Absolutely.
So we start a new season here in about a month, and Jimmy and I are going to go through all 8 NFL divisions. We're going to pick over-unders. We're going to tell you what we think about these teams a little bit more in depth. So this will be the first of what will probably end up being an 8-part released podcast, division by division. And of course, we are starting in the AFC North. That is where our hometown Cleveland Browns are. Jimmy, this is how the teams finished off last year. Pittsburgh was your division winner at 12-4. Baltimore took second on the tiebreaker against Cleveland. Both teams went 11-5. And then the Cincinnati Bengals were 4-11-1. So I guess the first place to start would be who wins this division this year?
Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fight. I like the way the Browns schedule works towards the beginning and the end of the season. And the Steelers have a hard part of the season towards the beginning and towards the end. So I think that'll be a swing. I got Baltimore in between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I think Cincinnati's not that far behind Pittsburgh also. I think they're going to lose a lot of close games. But I think the Browns are going to handle it. I think Cleveland and Baltimore will both go to the playoffs. But I think Cleveland wins the division this year.
Nice. I like that confidence. So let's start with our Cleveland Browns. Their over-under sits at 10.5. They are plus 1,600 to win the Super Bowl, plus 750 to win the AFC, and they are plus 145 to win the AFC North. Right now, the odds are pretty split between Baltimore and Cleveland. That's a coin flip. I actually also like Cleveland. I think they've solved a lot of their problems on defense. So if the defense is just average compared to the catastrophe it was a year ago, they're going to be in really good shape. So, Jimmy, I told you before the podcast I was going to have a stat for you that was going to blow your mind. The Cleveland Browns went 11-5 last year. Their point differential was minus 11.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. They had their games were so close, and they actually, for a change, were on the right side of some blowouts, which is kind of new for the team, for the fan base, for the franchise.
Yeah, it's a nice change of pace.
It's been a long time. But, no, that doesn't surprise me at all. That's a staggering number because you had they were the 5 seed?
Yes.
They were the 5 seed, and you get 11 wins that could have easily been 13, 14. That's kind of wild. It really is, but they were in every game, and we believe that's because they actually do have a really good roster, and we finally have a grown-up in the room who's not going anywhere. We've had a couple coaches in Cleveland that probably could have righted the ship, but we had a couple bad seasons, and then they had to go. It seems like for a change, the front office and the coaching staff have gotten together, made a plan, looks like they're following it. They're kind of doing exactly what they said they were going to do, which is wild. And this team has a chance. I think they've got a 3-year window to be really one of the better teams in the AFC.
I agree with pretty much all of that. What I really like about this offseason is Baker Mayfield started the offseason with a coach, and everybody's still there as we get ready to start this new season. I don't think that can really be underestimated when we project Baker Mayfield going forward this season. So looking at some of the future props, the player props fields are very, very slim right now. So keep an eye on that as the season gets closer.
Hey, so before we get into kind of looking at the player props, can we look at the team props one more time? Can we go through those?
Absolutely.
Because those numbers were kind of astounding.
So their over-under is 10.5, and I think they go over that.
Right. And what's the line at? Does it have a line, or is it just the over-under? I was just curious. Hammer the over, by the way, everybody that listens to this.
Minus 116.
So, okay. That's more realistic, I think. But I don't understand. Well, it's going to be kind of weird to get in these numbers because you're saying 10.5 games can't get you even, but you can really make some money on them winning divisions, and so that's kind of wild. But I think you hammer this over. There's no doubt they don't win 11 games.
Yeah, they went 11-5 last year with just everything kind of stacked against them early in a defense that they were horrendous.
Yep.
And then plus 750 to win the AFC is kind of juicy.
That's a smart bet. That is a bet that if it hits or it doesn't hit, it'll keep your legs unbroken because you don't have to make some wild bet on your team to make a little bit of money. Like those are nice odds for a nice $100 bet on a team that has a very good chance of winning the AFC.
Yeah, and that plus 1,600, if you're somebody that loves to just put money on the Browns every year to win, that's a really nice number because I think their chances are better than 16-1.
I do too. I absolutely do too.
All right, getting into the player props. Baker Mayfield's over-under for total yards this season is 3950.5. That feels low to me. I think Baker easily gets over 4,000 this season, Jimmy.
I do too. I agree. I can't argue with you on this one. It's hard to project out the Browns offense without, if you believe they have a chance of being as successful as a lot of people, even outside of Cleveland, think they can. Baker's got to have 4,000 yards. It's just that's what it is.
Well, last season he went for 3,563. 3 of those games were in just shit weather conditions. And that is something you worry about with the Browns. There may be a couple of weeks where you just crumple up your paper, just look away from the stats because they're going to be bad. But 4,000 yards, there's an extra game this season. Yep. We project him to be better in year 2 of Stefanski's offense.
Yep.
At 4,000 is perfectly doable. He's also plus 3,500 for MVP.
And we got to remember how much, and you can also, it's something you can look at, Kirk Cousins really exploded that second year in the offense and really made stars out of 2 wide receivers that no one was sure if they were stars.
Yeah, which does bode well for OBJ and Jarvis Landry, although there's only an over-under total right now that I could find for OBJ. He's at 950.5 yards.
I'd have to take the over.
That almost feels like an injury play.
Yep, it does.
Do you think he stays healthy or does he get hurt? The next Brown we'll talk about is Nick Chubb, who just got a 3-year, $36 million extension with $20 million guaranteed. That means he'll definitely be a Brown for the next 2 years, and they'll probably rework his contract, something that gives him 2 years. They'll probably do this same contract in a similar fashion when he's up again in 2-3 years.
Yeah, I agree. And this is another position, just like the coach, just like the general manager, just like the quarterback. We have turned over a ton of running backs. None of them popped quite as much as our boy Nick Chubb did, but they popped and they had some good years, and we weren't willing to give extensions, and we'll just keep drafting, keep signing free agents. We'll keep trying to get the position right. Now it looks like we drafted it right. We've got it at least for another 4 years. I love it. Nick Chubb is great. I hope they can work salary cap around and end up being able to at least lock Hunt up for a couple more years. I think that would be fabulous. I think it's what needs to be done, and so far the front office has done a good job of doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, Chubb's number sits at 1,240.5 yards for his over-under. He's plus 750 to lead the league in rushing, and plus 1,400 for Offensive Player of the Year. It's really tempting to throw 50 at that and just cross your fingers.
I absolutely agree, because you can see scenarios where he's nowhere in play for that award, but you can also see scenarios where he's very much in play for that award.
You worry about health a little bit. He did only play 12 games last year, and the bigger concern for me with any of these numbers for Chubb is, will he get enough carries?
I think he will.
So last year he had 190 attempts for just over 1,000 yards. He went for 1,067. Throw 5 more games on that?
Yeah.
You know, if we're sitting here in week 12 talking about Nick Chubb knocking on the door of possibly a 2,000-yard season with 25 touchdowns, it wouldn't surprise me.
No, not at all. And those numbers mean you win both of those bets.
Yeah.
So
you're getting something out of that.
So throwing 50 at each one of those seems like a really smart idea.
The place where the Browns made the most changes, though, is on defense. And you and I applaud all of that. They added to the secondary in the draft in free agency. They brought in a bunch of linebackers. The one mainstay that has been the mainstay is Myles Garrett. He is plus 600 for Defensive Player of the Year, and you know he's going to want to come back. He got COVID, missed some of the season last year, but before he was out with COVID, he had started out the season. He had 4 strip stack fumbles in each of the first 4 games. Like, that's beast stuff.
Yep.
Having Jadeveon Clowney put him in even better position to repeat that.
That's obviously the idea of everyone within the organization. I applaud them for taking a shot at it. I don't know if it's going to work. Clowney was not good last year. Like, I've been trying to tell that to Browns fans. You didn't see a lot of him because he wasn't on the field very much, because he wasn't making very many plays. He really had a down year. If we can get the disruptive, dominant Clowney, even in spurts, even in packages, that just limit a little bit of the attention paid to Myles Garrett, and Myles Garrett looks lean and mean. He looks healthy. He says he's over all the after effects he had for COVID, which affected his breathing, affected the way he was able to attack when he came back last year.
Didn't affect his box jump.
No, it did not affect the box jump. No, I see, for a lot of reasons, I see a lot of possibilities where Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the NFL this year, and he gets all the accolades that go with it.
Yeah. Do you think that defense is going to be – how do you think that defense ends up playing?
I think the defense will have a chance to be really good. I love, as you know, the last couple of years, I've really been into the Rams. They kind of became my second team. I love a lot of their players. I love their coaching staff. I love a lot of what they do. The defensive backs we got from the Rams, they were really good because of the system they were in, but you could still tell in one-on-one situations, just overall level of talent and knowledge of what they were doing out there, they were both really good pickups. I got to be honest, the worry for me is at the linebacker position. That's where I'm worried. That's where I feel like the holes are on the defense. I think we're good on defensive line. I really like what we did. There's a little bit of depth to go with our starters. The linebackers, that's just where the worry is. Is Mack Wilson okay? Is Mack Wilson a starter? I don't know anymore.
He's reports out of camp are that he has just been attached to Anthony Walker's hip.
Yep.
Which is, they took our boy Wu in the second round. That pick was a direct indictment of Mack Wilson's play since he was drafted.
Yep.
That was the Browns saying, yeah, we don't think you're our long-term answer here, Mack Wilson. So it's good to see him come into camp and take that seriously and understand the situation that he's in. I just don't know if we're going to see it on the field, because he took a pretty severe step back last year.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, how much of that is based on the fact that he's out in coverage, and if he's nowhere near Denzel Ward, then he doesn't have anybody around him that can cover either. So is he... you need system guys, so we don't really need a superstar at that linebacker position. They just need a guy that can fill the role and cover the space and make tackles.
I agree, that's what you got with Anthony from the Colts. He is a tackle machine, and that's what we needed. I'm just curious, like with Mack Wilson, I'm really curious. Hopefully somebody can step up and we can limit the snaps of Taki, because he's really good in little spurts, and then there are spurts where defenses or offenses attack him. So I'd like to be able to see Taki not have to play as much, keep his energy level up. And I think Jock probably has a chance to be Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Wow.
I mean, if Mack Wilson doesn't take any kind of step forward, nobody else is out there really making tackles. Like, Myles doesn't do a lot of chase down stuff normally. Normally, our defensive line doesn't chase backwards if they don't make the play at the line of scrimmage, and we count on the linebackers and the safeties to make the tackles. Well, we know that's where the problem has been for the last couple of years on the defense, was getting that stopping tackle. Like, instead of, we have a lot of 7-yard gains, we need it down to 4 yards because we need somebody to make a tackle. Jock looks like he likes to tackle, looks like he knows how to be in the right spot. So I think he could have a great year. That's what I'm going with. But I'm also being all positive on the Browns. We have a roster this year that you can do that with. PFF has the offensive line rated as number 1 in the league, which is awesome. And like it or not, PFF statistics don't normally lie. They normally know what they're talking about. So you expect a big year from the offensive line too. But I do think the linebackers are the weak link of the defense. If there's a problem, I think that's where it'll be. I think in the secondary, you might run into situations where you have too many good players to be on the field at one time.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem.
I think
you can sub guys in, sub guys out. Joe Woods was doing that regularly with the defensive line in San Francisco.
That's true.
And that's one thing I trust him to do is understand how to use his depth, how to put his players in positions so that they're, maybe not fresher than their opponent, but at least they're more fresh than they would be if they were out there all the time.
I like it. Do you think any of our oft-injured defensive backs will play a healthy season this year?
I will. Well, I've been consistent. I'll believe Greedy Williams plays football again when I see him on a football field.
All right.
For an actual game, an actual regular season game, I will believe Greedy Williams is back when I see that.
All right.
Denzel Ward, is he going to play? Is he going to miss a quarter of the season again? That's the worry with him because it's happened frequently.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm Denzel Ward, I might be a little nervous about the young man out of Northwestern, Newsome.
Yep. Exactly.
I don't think that pick isn't the same situation as what happened with JOK and Mac Wilson because you need multiple cornerbacks. I think that was more an indictment on Greedy Williams not being able to play.
Yep.
But Newsome could make Denzel Ward somebody that you don't have to break the bank for.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yep. And of course, we're super early in camp. This is a super early kind of AFC North look. I'm sure we'll revisit once we get at least into preseason. I'm sure we'll go back over some of the key divisions. But Newsome is looking like an absolute star right now in camp. Like they were making a joke. They couldn't complete a pass on him. They were trying to pick him. They couldn't. He's playing really well. It's very early in camp, without a doubt. No,
What is it? Terry Pluto always says he's like they're not even wearing pads yet. Anybody who's fast is going to look good when they're out there in t-shirts and shorts.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's not wrong. But Newsome has looked better than everyone else on the defensive secondary side.
Yeah, and it's just good to see the speed.
Yep.
Because they've been slow.
Yep.
So let's move on to the rest of the division. The Baltimore Ravens, as we've both said, are who we think will most likely compete with the Browns for the division. Their over-under also sits at 10.5. I think that's an easy over.
Me as well.
I just real short on that. Baltimore does not lose to bad teams.
Nope.
And they're going to play at least 6 or 7 games against bad teams, and Lamar Jackson's going to run all over them, and everybody's going to talk about how great their offense looks. And is this the year that Lamar Jackson has learned how to throw passes and complete passes? And we're going to do that whole thing again. And that's fine because you just bet accordingly. It's going to screw with the odds. You know it. Plan for it.
Yep.
And execute when the time comes.
For the most part, when you're picking weekly games, if you're in any kind of weekly pool, any kind of survivor pool, if you're betting wins every game, whatever, quarter season, half season, whatever you're looking at, understand the Ravens aren't the team that somebody gets a trap win against. The Ravens are not the team where the team that's getting 9 points wins the game outright. It doesn't happen.
Yeah,
kudos to Harbaugh.
That's Harbaugh. Yeah,
there may be a limit to where he can take his current roster, his current team, but he still doesn't lose to bad teams. They're still really well coached. They've got a lot of great pieces all over the field. Do not pick the Ravens to lose a game they're supposed to win. It hurts. Trust me, guys, it hurts.
They're not like the Rams, and they're going to dropping that game to the Jets. It doesn't happen with Harbaugh teams. Even when they've been mediocre, they beat bad teams.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree.
So looking at their odds, all of their odds are basically the general consensus is that Baltimore is a little bit ahead of Cleveland in terms of the odds, and this is across the board. So the Browns were plus 1,600 to win the Super Bowl. Baltimore's plus 1,400 to win the Super Bowl. Perfectly reasonable. Baltimore's plus 650 to win the AFC, and they're plus 120 to win the AFC North. We both like Cleveland. Yeah. We're probably a little biased. I'm sure everybody in Baltimore thinks they're going to win the division. So I don't think any bets on Baltimore in terms of the division or the conference are crazy. They're one of the top teams right behind Kansas City in terms of the AFC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I make those bets too. Absolutely. Now, I think like a team like Cleveland, And there are multiple teams that Baltimore plays that, just like they don't lose, right now they don't lose to bad teams, they still can't beat teams that can really cover because Lamar still cannot throw outside the tackles. Maybe this is the year he gets that going. I don't know. I was very critical of him last year. I think I nailed it. He just happened to get in the end zone a lot, which saved his fantasy value. But, I mean, he looks a little broken throwing the ball outside the numbers down the field. There are teams in this league, that's the throw you have to make to beat them, and those are the games they're going to lose. I hope he proves me wrong because I love the Lamar Jackson story. It's awesome, but he's got to take that next step. It needs to be less design runs, more throws outside. We've heard the complaints that, he's doing it with bad wide receivers, which could be true. They went out and got him a wide receiver. Hopefully for them, Hollywood Brown stays healthy. They've got an opportunity. You've got 2 good tight ends. Like, Lamar can make a step, and I have no problem making every one of those bets.
So let's look at the player props, and then I have something I want to throw by you on Baltimore because the thought came to me and it just struck me with terror. So that's we'll get to that here in just a second. Lamar Jackson's over-under for passing yards. He's at 3,400.5. 17-game season. That's a little... It's right around 200 a game. Like, I don't know. You figure he's going to, those bad teams, he's going to have at least 3 games where he puts up more than 400 yards passing.
Yeah, probably.
But he's also going to probably have like 2 or 3 games where he puts up 150 or less because they just don't need him to. They're going to be up by a ton.
Yep. I would stay away from that myself.
I actually agree with you on that. He's plus 1,700 for MVP.
That's a good bet. That's a good bet.
I think that's a juicy bet, but I also think it's really difficult for him to win MVP. He's already won an MVP, which means to win another, he's going to have to be even better than he was that season, and he's going to have to sort of be the clear guy. Of course, if you think Baltimore is going to go 15-2 and you're really high on him, then 17-1 that's great odds for him as MVP. And then he's plus 1,800 for Offensive Player of the Year.
I would be okay with either of those bets.
And then we have Mark Andrews receiving yards is 800.5. And Marquise Brown is 825.5.
I would not touch Marquise Brown. I would hammer Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I like Mark Andrews, and that actually leads into what I was thinking. Remember how New England built their offense around tight ends with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, and they didn't really worry about outside the numbers. They would throw passes there when it was advantageous for them, but they made their bread and butter in the middle of the field, high and low. I just don't understand why Baltimore didn't do that. Why are they investing in wide receivers or trying to bring in wide receivers to get Lamar Jackson to throw outside the numbers when it's not a question of if he can make that throw, because right now he can't. But why even bother? He is so good throwing the ball over the middle of the field. Yep. If you're running that type of offense with 2 tight ends and you're doing all sorts of crazy shit with that keeps me up at night if I'm a Browns fan, is Baltimore going, we should just get 2 tight ends and just dominate the middle of the field.
Well, I think they're close to that with Mark Andrews and Nick Boyle. Nick Boyle has flashed as well. They had trouble both being healthy at the same time. But I agree with that. And Sammy Watkins is a guy that'll go over the numbers. Like, he doesn't have a problem with it.
But he's not going to be on the field for half the season. So
you're probably not wrong, but it could be dynamic when he's there, bro. And then you let Hollywood Brown and Rashad Bateman just stretch the field. I mean, I get it. It scares me, and I agree with you. I don't understand why it seems like every game he has 3 or 4 throws that they know he has trouble making that they want to force. And normally the corners you can tell where it's going, and the corners tend to jump on it. And maybe better wide receivers make a difference. I don't know. Maybe if he's got better wide receivers, he'll have more trust and he'll get rid of the ball quicker into the break than kind of waiting to see the numbers. Because that's what it seems to be when he tries to throw the ball outside to anybody other than Mark Andrews. Now, he'll float him down there for Mark Andrews to go make a play, but when it's his wide receivers, he struggles with it. So maybe this is his next step, and that should scare Browns fans because Lamar is just absolutely dynamic. It just is what it is. It's like there were, of course, it's not on the same level, but we all remember seeing games where Warren Moon was untackleable, but he also had a cannon for an arm. And Lamar is trying to get to that level, and if he can learn how to make that throw or they just get it out of the playbook, he might be there.
I'm mad because I can't find J.K. Dobbins' future bets. But
hammer the over.
Whatever it is, it should probably be an over.
Whatever it is, I would imagine it'll be
enough carries last year.
He did not. I imagine he's probably on par with the Nick Chubb bets. Would be my guess is where it'll come out.
Yeah, around 12.50. That sounds right.
Yeah, I mean J.K. Dobbins can be an absolute superstar. He can be the best running back in the NFL this year. He's going to get a ton of carries. There's never really going to be a stacked box because of the Lamar situation. And if the Ravens passing game takes off, then it opens up the line even more for you. Like J.K. Dobbins can be an absolute beast in this league. He's in the right situation. If he stays healthy, if they just trust him a little more, Harbaugh's still that old school coach where you don't really want to trust the young guys. But if he grows a little bit of trust for him, I think Dobbins can be an absolute superstar.
He's plus 3,300 to lead the league in rushing.
Oh, I take that bet.
That's definitely a long shot, but that would be something I would look at. Look at how they're running their offense the first 2-3 weeks of the season, while keeping an eye, because J.K. Dobbins could bust out for big yardage those first 3 games, and that line might not move at all.
Yep.
So something to think about. He's a beast. We saw him at Ohio State. I hate that he plays for the Ravens.
Yep.
But he's just a beast. The next team that we think in order of this division is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, they started out super hot last year and then just completely fell apart, getting their asses kicked by the Browns in a playoff game, the most fun I've had watching football in quite some time. Their over-under sits at 8.5, Jimmy.
I will be taking the over if it stays at 8.5 because I believe they go 9-8. Their roster is kind of wild because they've got you've got one absolute. Okay, I take it back. 2 absolute young proven superstars in T.J. Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick. Absolute. Like the rest of the defense in a lot of spots is old, unproven, but it doesn't matter because TJ and Minka cover up a lot of shit. Then on the offensive side, you have some wide receivers. Like I'm over Juju. Like Juju's not a star. Juju's not a 1.
Wait, you're not impressed by his TikTok videos that piss off the other team and lead to him
not at all
getting in his own head and fucking up?
But the other young wide receivers have a chance to be really, really good. If you look at the names on the offensive line, they're not good. PFF has Pittsburgh. I believe they're the first ranking. They were 28th. Their offensive line is full of underachievers. They signed 1 proven star. Everybody else on the offensive line is suspect. Guys playing out of position. Guys not playing where they move best. Which then, of course, trickles into Ben. What the hell does Ben look like? I think Ben will still be good enough to win 9 games. I don't think they'll beat any good team. I think you got to figure there's probably a split with Baltimore and a split with Cleveland because that's just always what seems to happen with those games. But I don't think Ben looks as good as everyone in Pittsburgh wants me to believe he looks.
What do you think his over-under for yardage is?
Is it 3,000?
He has the exact same number as Baker Mayfield.
See, I'm hammering that under because I don't think he's going to make it all year. But there's also,
just seeing that number be the same with how much Roethlisberger throws the ball, they don't think he has it anymore.
No, but I still take the under there. I don't think you just fix what is going on with his arm at this age. I just don't think it's there. Not everybody gets to be Tom Brady. We saw it with Peyton, with the neck.
As I've heard several other talking heads have said, he ain't exactly on the TB12 diet,
exactly,
and he ain't been over the last decade.
Exactly. I don't think he's going to be okay, and I think whether it's Haskins or it's Rudolph, I don't think the backup is going to be that much better because their offensive line isn't going to be able to hold a pass rush like they used to. I think it's going to be ugly for the Steelers. I really do. And
the crazy part about this is that we think ugly's 9-8.
Yeah, but I do. But I still when I look through the teams they play, I can't say they're going to lose both games to Cleveland and Baltimore because they hardly ever do. So I called that a split, and then there are 7 other teams that they will probably beat, that they are just better than, and it is what it is. And we haven't even talked about Najee yet. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to look like.
Najee Harris over under 975.5.
It's got to be an over. That's got to be the over.
Is he going to get enough carries for that?
He's going to get enough carries.
Is he?
Yeah, absolutely. First and second down. Because they're going to be protecting the shit out of Roethlisberger.
But he's going to change the calls. So what if he wants to throw?
He's going to be on the radio. This fucking Harris guy thinks I need to keep handing him the ball. Doesn't he know I'm the offense?
He's going to be running screens for Harris and short hitches and stuff so that Harris can get his yards, but then he can get his as well.
Yeah, maybe. That's diabolical. I love it. Maybe you're right, but...
Najee Harris is plus 850 for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and his over-under touchdowns is 9.5.
I would probably take both of those bets.
Let me double check that over-under because I think it's rushing and receiving. Yeah, 9.5.
Yeah, I can see him having 10 touchdowns pretty easily.
That seems like it's going to happen pretty easily. He feels like a guy who should get to about 12, 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I think Offensive Rookie of the Year he deserves at least to be a thought with that. Now you've got these splash wide receivers that
there's all the quarterbacks as well.
Yep. I mean, if it's not Trevor Lawrence, then who? That's kind of, what it is. I think after the first few weeks, when Najee Harris gets used to having a shitty offensive line for the first time in a bunch of years, and no offense to what Alabama does, there's really only a couple games a year where you play NFL level talent. It's just what it is in the SEC. Clearly they're trying to clean it up with adding teams, but you only get so much exposure to NFL defenses at Alabama. A couple games a year, that's it. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But I think it'll take him a couple weeks to adjust. I don't think he's going to have the boom games early like Jonathan Taylor had. I think it's going to be gradual, but then I see him starting to fall into the Le'Veon Bell role. I see that with Najee.
The reports out of camp from 92.3, the Carmine and Lima show, they do every week. They go around the AFC North and they talk to the beat reporters for each of the other teams, and everybody is raving about Harris's ability to catch the ball.
Yep.
They say he is just very smooth, it just comes very naturally to him. And we're sort of in a renaissance of running backs. We've had so many good running backs for so long, but now we've got this next crop of running backs that have come up that are not just good running backs, but they're good at catching the ball out of the backfield.
Don't you? You kind of feel like these are the guys that grew up. These are the guys that grew up playing running back. Where the best running back in the NFL was LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah,
and that group of guys that could really run and catch. And these are those guys, and they want to be able to do both, and a lot of them do both quite well. And Najee Harris, like I said, I think he can be an absolute superstar. I hate, when we did our draft pod, there were 2 picks. I hammered on bets. I made money. The Jaguars were taking Travis Etienne. The Jaguars were taking him. It didn't matter. It didn't fill a need. That is a dude that Urban Meyer wants to coach. You want Trevor's security blanket? There was no doubt they weren't taking Etienne, and there was no doubt the Steelers were not taking Najee Harris. He fits that. Somehow he's like a mix of Bettis and Bell together, and the Steelers are going to love him, and you just knew they were going to take him. But I think they would have been much better served to take an offensive lineman. If you were going to bring Ben back and you want him to still be Ben, I think they should have taken the lineman early. But I think Najee Harris has a chance to be great in this league.
Yeah. And one last note on the Pittsburgh Steelers, TJ Watt is plus 800 for Defensive Player of the Year. It's a little lower than Miles.
I'm not. Well, actually, I would bet against that because I'm betting Myles Garrett to be Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I don't like TJ. I just don't think the Steelers are going to be good enough for him to be in that discussion.
I agree with you because
he'll be just outside.
There are going to be games where he may have 4 sacks, but they might give up 600 yards of offense.
Yeah.
Their defensive line is old. They don't have a lot of proven depth. They're to the point now where it really does look like Joe Hayden is the number 1 cornerback.
That's just
they've
scary.
been able to disguise Joe Hayden. They've gotten the best out of Joe Hayden. They accentuated what he did well, and they hid what he didn't do well, but they don't have it doesn't look like they have the personnel to hide what he does bad now. There are going to be games where he's got to play on an island, and that doesn't normally work well for him.
All right, so the last team in the AFC North is the Cincinnati Bengals. The first season of Joe Burrow ended prematurely because their offensive line is a complete fucking disaster. The Bengals over-under is 6.5. I actually think they go like 5-12, 6-11. I don't think they get to 7.
All right. So here you go. This one's tough for me. I'm going to keep looking at it because I think the Bengals are going to be fun to watch this year. They keep signing pieces on defense. They're growing some talent. Offensively, you look at the wide receiver core and you go, shit, if those two guys stay healthy, this offense could be deadly.
Tyler Boyd's good.
Tyler Boyd is good.
I mean, he's not a superstar, but Tyler Boyd's good.
I agree with you. T. Higgins is good. T. Higgins is good if he can stay healthy. And then you put Jamar Chase in there, and it's perfect. And you still have Joe Mixon. So here's where I have the Bengals. I have the Bengals at 6-11. I have them winning games over the Bears, Lions, Jets, Raiders, 49ers, and Broncos.
The only one I would kind of disagree with is maybe Denver. Like, that defense may end up being
maybe too much.
Really, really good. But then, still with Denver, you're dealing with Drew Lock, and Are you gonna? Is anybody? If anybody out there wants to bet on Drew Lock, please reach out to me. I will take that bet. And we can just handle this personally and not worry about getting the sports books involved.
But then,
because I do not trust Drew Lock at all.
So, and even if they lose one of those games, and that means you've got to beat Baltimore once, Pittsburgh once. You've got to beat Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. You've got to get 2 wins out of those 6 games.
I'm not sure they're beating Cleveland or Baltimore.
I don't think they are either,
because Cleveland and Baltimore know they need that. They know they need to sweep the Bengals.
Yep, I agree with you. I don't know if they can beat Pittsburgh. I don't know if they snuck one against Pittsburgh, maybe. But then that's guaranteeing they win those other 6 games because you go through the rest of their schedule and there are not games they can win. They're not going to beat the Packers.
No.
You know, they're out of the rest of their out of schedule games are tough
because the AFC North plays the AFC West
and the NFC North.
They're not beating the Chiefs.
Right, they're not beating the Chiefs.
Probably not beating the Chargers.
Exactly, and that's where I had it. I had them losing both of those games. Like, I kind of thought about the Chargers a little bit, but I don't think their defense is good enough to slow down the Chargers' offense if healthy. So I'm going to stare at this one. Like, I'm going to be staring at this one.
Whenever I'm in doubt with the Bengals, I always sort of go to the bad side because Mike Brown's one of the worst owners. They have substandard facilities. It just across the board, it's a substandard organization, and they're good. Like, when the coin, if it's a 50-50 game, they're going to lose. And that's just kind of what it feels like with them.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially, I still don't trust their line. Joe Burrow's over-under is 4,250.5. If he plays 17 games, I love the over. But I don't know if he's going to be able to stay upright. I had him in fantasy last year, and Joe Burrow puts numbers up. He's a lot of fun. And having Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase, I like Tyler Boyd's at 900.5 yards. And Jamar Chase is at 1,000.5 yards. I like both of those to go over if Joe Burrow plays 17 games. And I'm not comfortable enough to bet those, but will the offensive line keep him upright?
Exactly. So if you don't mind, I want to just kind of revisit the draft again and kind of talk about what the Bengals have going on, right? So when you look at their guys on offensive line, PFF has the Bengals ranked as the 25th overall offensive line coming into the season. And I think there's one important player on the offensive line, and that is Jackson Carman, their second-round pick. He played left tackle at Clemson for 4 years. Now that's against ACC defenses, couple bowl games at left tackle. They're projecting to start him at right tackle. So welcome to the AFC North.
You're gonna get a lot of play time against TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. Have fun with that.
And if Carman busts, and you don't have a permanent starter on the offensive line, it does not matter how well Chase plays. You fucked up the draft pick.
Yeah, it's still we When we did our draft podcast, I remember you guys were like, no, they got to go with the offensive tackle, Sewell.
Yep.
And I said, no, it's the Bengals. They're going to fuck this up, and they're going to draft the weapon, and they're never going to be able to use him because Joe Burrow is going to be running for his life.
Yep. So that's why, of the rookies, like when we talk about rookies during the year, I will continue to do an update on this young man because he is super important to the Bengals' growth. If he happens to be good, then you knocked it out of the park with your first and second round draft picks. And we might actually be back to a division with 4 viable teams like it's been in the past.
That leads into a really good question as we sort of wrap up here with the AFC North. Is this the best division in football?
I think it's the second best division in football.
Behind
NFC
West. I would say those are the two.
Or at least
I don't think there's another division that has 2 teams of the quality of Cleveland and Baltimore with their third team being as good as Pittsburgh.
So, here's just a little thought I have on this. I am completely down on the San Francisco 49ers. We will have our boy Ron Brown on with us when we talk about the NFC West. So me and him can talk about the 49ers. I'm going to hammer everything. I'm going against them. I don't think they're going to be the team everybody thinks they're going to be. I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling I have, and I'm going to attack them, and I'm going to attack Ron and his beloved 49ers. So I think
I think you're taking way too much joy in this.
I think the perception is that the 49ers are really good, so the NFC West is really good. I think the AFC North is the best division because I think they have depth like that with the Ravens, the Browns, and the Steelers, more so than any other division. AFC West has 2 good teams and 2 poor teams.
Yeah.
I think the only other division close is actually the AFC East because I think the Bills and the Dolphins aren't that far off from the Ravens and the Browns. And I don't know about the Patriots. I don't know.
We'll get to them, but
don't make that face at me.
The Dolphins, man.
No. The Dolphins are coming, bro.
I like the coach. I like the defense. I do not like what I've seen from the quarterback. No. I don't like what I've seen from Tua.
Right.
It's not something that is. He scares me as a bettor. When I look at future bets, that goes immediately into a little pile of just okay, we'll take another look at him, but I don't really like that.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll get there. But I think the AFC North has the most talent. I think it sucks for the AFC North that they've got to battle like they're going to have to battle. Because like I said, I don't think the Bengals are a trash team anymore if Joe Burrow is healthy. That's just where it is. If the offensive line can keep him up, I think the Bengals can be pretty good on offense. They're going to give up some points on defense. Their defense, they're still building over there. They're going to give up points, but I think they're going to be in games. I could see them very much being they steal a couple games here and there, and they're really close to 500 with a really small over-under on points.
Yeah.
I could see that. But that's everything going well. I also think when they play the Ravens and the Browns, they're probably going to give up 45 points in each one of those games. So
do you want to wrap up here with the AFC North? Do you want to play the Browns schedule game?
Let's play this Browns schedule game. Let's do it.
So week 1, the big one in Arrowhead. They start out the season with the Kansas City Chiefs, Jimmy.
As of right now, I'm taking the Chiefs to win this football game.
Yeah, but I think this is the type of game that all of the numbers. So here's the problem with this game for the Browns if you're a bettor. All of the numbers, that plus 1,600, plus 750, plus 145 for the Super Bowl conference and division, if they win this game, those numbers are all going to go down, and you're not going to be able to get as good odds as you are
plain
now.
And simple, if you like those numbers like we like those numbers, you need to make the bet now.
Yeah. I don't think they win that game, but I think they do a pretty good showing. But
I do too. I think they're going to look good. I don't think they're going to get blown out. I think they'll be able to score points on Kansas City. This could also, Kansas City could score 80 points, and I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
If Andy Reid is able to do what Andy Reid can do and have them ready and focused and be like, look, we're not forgetting that offensive performance. Let's go out here against a good defense and pound them into the dirt to show everybody what we can do. We fixed our offensive line problems. We're back. Let's go do it. I also don't know if they fixed their offensive line problems. I'm not sure. So if Cleveland stole this game, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they're going to get blown out.
This city is if Cleveland wins this football game, Cleveland that whole next week is going to be so much fun. And when they the next 2 weeks they play Houston and Chicago.
Those are wins.
We both have those as wins, I would think.
Yep.
Week 4 they are traveling to Minnesota, a tough, pretty good team trying to bounce back.
Yeah.
It's almost like looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
Except I think the Browns are way better on defense.
Yeah.
So I think that looks like a win. Then they get the Chargers.
So I haven't decided which one of these is the win and the loss, but they're going to split these two games.
Yeah, they have a home game against Arizona. Week 5, they travel to Los Angeles to play the Chargers, and then they host the Arizona Cardinals. Yep. And I agree with you. I see that as sort of a 4-2 start.
Yeah, I think I'm curious to see how much they protect Kevin Stefanski in the Vikings game. Like, is it going to be a game where let's go out and show these dumbasses what they did by not kicking the old man out and giving Kevin the job? Like,
I don't think is it going to be? I just don't think Kevin's built like that.
Or is it going to be a game where the guy on the other side is like, rip everyone's eyeballs out? Please, like I don't know, but I don't think they can win both of those games. I think one of those are a loss.
Okay, and then week 7 they host the Denver Broncos. I think I made my thoughts on the Broncos pretty well.
Yep.
pretty simple. Then they host the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's their week 8 first divisional game.
Yeah, and I have them winning. Like I glanced over the game that you talked about. I have them beating the Cardinals, the Broncos, and the Steelers in this stretch.
Okay, and then they travel down to Cincinnati. They play them. And then week 10 will be a really interesting game. Of course, I think they're going to sweep Cincinnati.
Yeah, me too.
And then they travel to Gillette to play the Patriots. You know, we'll get deeper into the Patriots when we talk AFC East, but that's a game that could be really interesting if the Patriots get their shit together.
Yeah, I'm as of right now, I have Cleveland winning this game. I think this may be really one of the FU games of the season for Baker Mayfield. I think this is a game where everybody's going to be watching. Hey, we know what Belichick does to unproven quarterbacks. A lot of people still think Baker's unproven, and I think Baker's going to go out and throw the ball all over the Patriots. I truly believe that. So the thing that's scary to me when I look at this, so for the purposes of this, I'm going to say their loss was to the Vikings, and they beat the Chargers.
Okay.
That means they go 6-0 in this stretch from the Chargers game to the Patriots game. And that's kind of crazy to think about. Which is
probably 7-0 because the next week they play the Lions at home.
Exactly.
And then this is the weirdest stretch of football on a schedule that I saw.
Yep.
They play the Ravens in week 12, then they have their bye week, and then they play the Ravens in week 14.
Yep.
That week 12 game, I'm assuming, is going to be a loss. But if that's a game that they can steal, man, if you can beat Baltimore on the road, go into your bye, and come out of the bye fresh and relaxed and ready to take them on again and beat them at home, that's how you win the division.
Yep. So it's weird for me the way I have the end of the season going for them. As of right now, and this may change as we get a little deeper in the season because it's so late when they play the Ravens. As of right now, I have them split in with the Ravens.
Yeah, I do too.
That's rough to win those two games. Like, that's going to be tough. I think they're going to be great football games, but I have a split there. Then, of course, I have them beating the Raiders because if you listen to us at all last year, you know how we feel about Derek Carr.
I just don't think that team's good.
Yeah, I agree. So then the only problem is
they're not terrible. They're not good.
Oh no, they're terrible. They're terrible. But then I've got them. My projections, which had Cleveland at 12-5, Pittsburgh at 9-8. I've got Cleveland losing to the Packers, losing to the Steelers, and then beating the Bengals to close the season. I'm not fully sure the Steelers are going to be able to beat the Browns because that may be a game Cleveland may legitimately be looking at first round bye.
Yeah.
So they may need that game a whole lot.
Happens with the Kansas City game. And another thing to note for the Browns, they have that bye in week 13. The Ravens go on the road and play the Steelers, which that game's always just go back and look at the weeks following Baltimore Raven games. Yep. And both of those teams generally play poorly.
Yep. It's like when I really looked at it, I felt they would lose. I see Cleveland losing the first one, winning the second one. Now, if they can get the first one because of that situation, they have a very good chance of getting the second one.
Yeah. So you said you have them at what, 12-5?
I have the Browns at 12-5.
Yeah, I have them at 12-5, but I can see 14-3 happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to be able to run the ball.
Yep.
And when you can run the ball, you can always have offense. And just to wrap up here, we've been high on Baker Mayfield after criticizing the pick. I think he's tough. The ranking of the 17th, right ahead of Kirk Cousins, is a fucking joke. He's going to cement himself as a top 10 quarterback this year, Jimmy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if he'll be able to get enough love for other people to consider him top 10, but I definitely see him in that 12 to 15 range. And I think that's perfectly fine with all the other pieces we have. I think the Cleveland Browns legitimately could have one of the more explosive offenses we've seen in a really long time. We've talked off air. Guys, if you're Browns fans, take a couple minutes and go check out Austin Hooper's contract. Like, it's kind of wild what we're still paying him. I believe he was only in the 40 target range last year. That's got to get – well, actually, I have that here. Let me actually look at it so I'm not talking out my ass. Where was he? So he had 46 catches on 70 targets. You can't pay a man that much money and only throw him the ball 70 times. Like, I expect a big uptick from Hooper. I'm planning on Odell being healthy all year. We know what Jarvis can do. We know what Chubb and Hunt can do. I think this offense can be absolutely special. And we're not the only ones that think it. It's nice for a change to be hearing it from other places. Really, the only critical part there is for a lot of people is Baker Mayfield. And I think Baker has checked a lot of boxes. He made a lot of huge throws and big plays to end the season last year. And I think they have a chance to continue to grow on that this year.
I agree. So I guess that'll do us for today. In the AFC North, we'll have 7 more divisions to go through. We'll probably be a lot more brief with the other divisions. Obviously, we dug a lot deeper in with our Cleveland Browns, and that's something we're going to really do is really focus on the Browns because it's going to be a lot of fun to do it.
Yeah, except for the NFC West. That one's going to take a while.
All right, Jimmy. Well, thank you for making the trip up and joining me for the pod today.
No place else I'd rather be, brother.
All right, and thank you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I'm Evan Belfiore, and we are No Broken Legs.
Every action has a repercussion. Lyrical bullets don't make me get the bussin'. Representing for